Ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning and selamat pagi. Now, barely 3 weeks ago, ISIS Malaysia convened the inaugural Kuala Lumpur Ankara Dialogue, where we had a vibrant and productive discourse with our friends from Türkiye. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim gave a keynote address and honored us with a 1-hour fireside chat where he fielded questions across a broad spectrum of geopolitical and geoeconomic issues. Today, we have the good fortune of receiving His Excellency Najmuddin Erdogan in this very select gathering of policy researchers, civil and military officers, scholars, and civil society leaders as well. Now, track 2 diplomacy is the bread and butter of ISIS Malaysia's work. We are no strangers to exchanging views on the workings of bilateral, regional, and international relations with leaders of administration, industries, and civil institutions. Today, we have the opportunity to engage with Excellency Bilal, who combines a steady commitment to the development of education with the proactive preservation of national and cultural values among the younger generations. Now, remarkably, Excellency Bilal does not limit his efforts to the youth of Türkiye and understands a crucial element in contemporary life, and that is the interconnectedness of nations, facilitated by technology and accelerated by no other than young people. Curious, tech-savvy of course, occasionally bored, and with easy access to the internet and the rest of the world. Distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, our era's propensity to treat individuals as a labor force has impacted the direction of education all over the world. In this milieu, it is incredibly heartening to see higher educational institutions, such as the Ibn Khaldun University, that are steadfast in focusing on cultivating human-centric skills and intercultural connections via the humanities and social sciences. A strong foundation in these fields also builds a neglected but essential skill: discernment in the use of artificial intelligence. While we acknowledge the ubiquity of AI technologies and strive to harness them for good, schools and universities shoulder much of the responsibility to keep people tethered to the reality that AI can never be the new human. Ladies and gentlemen, Türkiye-Malaysia ties are growing stronger than ever, with government agencies and the private sector benefiting from the deepening trust on all levels. Prime Minister Anwar's personal relationship with President Recep Erdogan is proof that interpersonal trust on the highest levels does indeed make an effective difference in bilateral cooperation. In January, Malaysia-Türkiye relations was elevated to a high-level strategic cooperation council. The recently concluded Defence Services Asia exhibition in Kuala Lumpur featured 73 Turkish companies, marking our growing bilateral defence cooperation. Beyond that, the path for broader and deeper partnerships in sectors like technology, finance, education, and culture has been made clearer with follow-up engagements, including those at the people-to-people level. Malaysia and Türkiye are fortunate that our deepening partnership does not exist in the shadow of war. Nevertheless, significant numbers of humanity are now mired in war with no real prospect of peace and security, and some of the deadliest and most protracted wars have taken place and are still taking place not far from the borders of Türkiye. This reality coupled with Turkey's considerable political clout and defense prowess in the region, means that Turkey cannot afford to leave the geopolitical vision of its people to chance. We in Southeast Asia cannot pretend, as some do, unfortunately, that the conflicts in West Asia are not our direct concern and that we should not be seen to be quote-unquote taking sides. Well, it is not about taking sides, for death and destruction are the inevitable consequences of man's propensity for conflict and violence. No doubt, our first reaction to reality is to avoid the inconvenient truth. But we know that truth will eventually find its way out. Whether it be the massacre of young girls taking shelter in their schools in Minab, Iran, or the carnage inflicted in southern Lebanon, or the genocide in the Gaza, the cold and calculated infliction of violence and destruction with maximum military force speaks to the utter disregard for the sanctity of life. As Malaysians, when we look at the world today, there is a grave sense of foreboding that this wanton destruction is about to get even worse. Already, there are far-reaching consequences for energy markets and supply chains across the globe. There is also the growing weaponization of diplomacy, with trade increasingly employed as a means of economic subjugation rather than collaboration. The upshot is a more fragmented global order which is fast breaking apart at the seams. The so-called rules-based order is turned on its head when the advocates of such order can readily condemn one country for its quote-unquote aggression, while blatantly refusing to call out the initial aggression perpetrated against it. The arbitrary resort to international law and norms is often demonstrated by frivolous cherry-picking and capricious application of rules that shield one party from accountability while denying another its legitimate rights. This is plainly an affront to our ingrained sense of fairness and justice. Having said that, it is imperative that we make it clear that attacks across the Gulf and the effective chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz has unleashed, quote-unquote, a sea of troubles and great difficulties to governments and peoples who not only had nothing to do with the war, but have sought to prevent it. The consequences of the war are not to be measured in mere statistics on paper, for they directly impact livelihoods. We have the energy emergency of the Philippines, the energy crunch in Indochina, and for Malaysia, austerity measures are already in place, while subsidies will require a major reset in the medium to long run. At the same time, the role of diplomacy cannot be overstated. The longer the conflict persists, the more entrenched its effects become. In this regard, Turkey has firmly and consistently called for de-escalation and warned against the ground invasion of Iran and the stoking of ethnic and sectarian divisions in the region. With the repeated failure of direct Iran-US talks, Turkey, along with Egypt, Oman, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia, lost no time in intensifying indirect diplomacy towards achieving an agreement signed in good faith. Beyond political and diplomatic de-escalation efforts, Ankara has also expressed its readiness to physically contribute towards neutralizing the war. On Saturday, Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan said that Turkey would participate in mine-clearing operations in the Hormuz in the event of an Iran-US peace agreement. This situation has shown that Turkey is exercising its agency in the geopolitical arena seriously, carefully, and with respect for its neighbors' sovereignty. Additionally, the far-reaching impact of the war on the global energy supply will no doubt be a highlight of COP31, which Antalya will host in November. His Excellency Bilal regularly reminds his audience in Turkey of the country's role in regional and global affairs. Indeed, the theme of this morning's roundtable discussion is Turkey and the path towards a state and a stable global order. We therefore look forward to hearing His Excellency and his further thoughts on this shortly. Thank you.